Hey y'all, I'm Jennifer with Spark Flash Fiction, and I am here tonight with our author Sandy Kay Slawson to talk about her story, A Side of Hope. So let me introduce her real quick, and then we are going to hop into those questions. Sandy is a Christian historical romance novelist and blogger who also writes flash fiction, short stories, and poetry. Sandy is a contributing blogger for the Mom Q blog. She is an avid reader and enjoys reviewing books and doing author interviews for her blog. Sandy and her husband of 35 years live and work on a hobby farm, enjoy time with their children and grandchildren, and travel near and far for work, research, or just for fun. So to start off, this is like my favorite question to ask authors. Okay. Tell me the inspiration behind A Side of Hope.
My inspiration. So my mind almost always goes historical whenever I start thinking of a story. So my inspiration was there is a neighbor who sticks to himself, and he's not friendly, doesn't get out. He's sort of a recluse. But why? Why is he that way? And so once I started asking those questions, then my story started unfolding. And the reason was he was a veteran, and he had wounds, external and internal, that he needed to heal from. So that's sort of where the ball started rolling from there. And then I was dealing with, the fall issue and thinking about Halloween. And I sort of used that as a catalyst for this character, this neighbor, Joe, and his, the female neighbor to connect.
Well, now I know you write historical romance, but I'm curious, is this era your typical era that you stick with, or do you normally write stories set in a different era?
It depends. If it's a short story, I'm all over the place. If it's for my novels, like my first series is in 18th century England, so way back, very much different from this. I believe it was 1948 or 1949, I forget. But and then my second series that I'm working on is like in the late 19th century. So that's still a good bit back from where we are here in this story. So it's harder to jump into those types of stories that far back for shorter pieces. I have dabbled with it, but usually if I'm doing a short piece, I come a little bit closer to our time.
Yeah, I can understand that. Now, I probably know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway because sometimes I'm surprised. What subgenre of romance is your favorite to read?
Well, now I am an eclectic reader, but I do tend to read historical romance. Christian, I like clean, but I do dabble with rom-com and suspense. But I will tell you that as I've been doing these book reviews and author Q&As for my blog, I have been introduced to some new genres as I've been reading. So like I just read, and I guess I'll be talking about it on Monday's blog, but I just read a speculative fiction, which was new to me, but I did enjoy it very much. So that's doing those reviews sort of makes me get out of my comfort zone a little further. So, but I do tend to go with the historical romance still as I'm reading too. So yeah, but like I said, I'm eclectic, so I'm all over the place, really.
That's how you know you'll never be bored or never get into a funk.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like I can learn, even though it's a different genre. I feel like I can learn from any of the books, and whether I'm whether it's focusing on a romance or suspense or any of that, they all have things to offer that are helpful whenever I sit down to write. So, yeah.
All right, now let's talk tropes. What is your favorite romance trope?
Oh, trope that okay, it's got to be the they fall in like or at least or love pretty quickly, but then there's all kinds of obstacles to keep them apart or from being able to come together as a couple or get married or whatever that ending's going to look like. Um, there's all kinds of obstacles to that they have to overcome. So yeah, I usually have them. I like them to fall for each other pretty quickly, and then, but they have to fight for each other.
So, are there any books that you can think of off the top of your head that fit that trope?
Oh boy, that's a good one.
I know I
Let's
threw you for a
see.
loop with that one.
What's that?
I know I kind
I
of like
didn't.
threw that out of thin air.
Yeah, I know, and I read so many books. It's hard. It's hard for me to think of one in particular because so many books do have them that so many do have them sort of fighting and arguing and unhappy with each other at first. So I don't know if I've read any like that recently. Now there's I guess there is one of my new favorites is the life let's see the Happy Life of Isadora Bentley by Courtney Walsh. I really like that book a lot, and I think that is one where they sort of liked each other pretty much from the start, and but then they had to face obstacles, before they really, could. Well, I don't want to give away the ending, but but before they had their happy ending, they had some obstacles there. Yeah.
Well, let me give you an easier one. Just tell
Okay.
me some sweet romances, period, that you've read recently, no matter the trope.
Okay. Okay. So let's see. I have read Jody Headland. She's it's sweet, but it might be a little bit on the steamy side of sweet. But I love hers. Let's see. There was one. Um, let's see. I probably have it here somewhere. Yes, The Heart of a Cowboy. That was a good one by Jody Headland. Um, there is Julia Monroe Begins Again by Rebecca Millett. That was a really good one. I laughed a lot in that book. Um, and let's see, I already mentioned The Happy Life of Isadora. Let's see if I could think of another. Oh, the Divine Proverb of Streussel by Sarah Brunswold. That was a good one. I don't know if it would be considered exactly a romance, but there was romantic aspects to it, and it was a really good one. I enjoyed that one. Yeah.
I've heard a lot about her, and I really need to check her out because I've heard she's very, very good.
Yes, I actually have another one of her books I'm about to read. It's The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp, I believe. I think that one's her. I think that's hers. But anyway, I'm about to read that one. I'm looking forward to it. And then she has another one coming out called The Atlas of Untold Stories, or it might already be out, but that I'm excited to see that one come too. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, let's switch over to writing. Tell me what the
Yes.
best piece of writing advice that you've ever received.
Okay. I know it. I know it is to go to writing conferences, to go to
Mm.
writers' conferences. That has been a game changer. Not necessarily that I'm not published yet as far as my novel. I'm not published yet, but I'm getting closer and closer. But the thing is I have learned so much every time I go to one of these writers' conferences. Um, about the craft of writing, about the business of writing, and making connections with other writers and people in the industry. I mean, I've met and made friendships with authors that were my favorite authors since way before I started writing. I mean, it's been just a huge uh, just lesson in what actually for me being a Christian writer is all about, and why am I writing? what is my why? Is the way they like to put it. What is your why? Why do you write? And mine personally is for the glory of God. I feel like He's called me to do this, to write and to show the true meaning of love and God's love. God is love, and so I try to show that in my writing. But writers' conferences by far have been the biggest help to me, and I highly recommend them. To me, it's well worth the cost.
So which ones have you been to so far? Because there's like every time I think about them, I find out about a new one that I've never heard of before. So which ones have you been to?
Okay, there's two that I go to almost every year. I think COVID kept me out of a couple of them, but the ACFW, American Christian Fiction Writers Conference, and the Blue Ridge Mountains Christian Writers Conference. So those are the two I go to almost every year for the last probably 5 years. And I'm also looking into this year the Florida Christian Writers Conference. So I actually have a author friend. She's my leader on my Word Weavers group that may be teaching a class this year there. So I'm thinking about going to support her. So and I've heard good things about that conference too. So anyway, but yeah, highly recommend them.
Yeah, I have to say I'm pretty partial to writing conferences too, because I remember the first one I went to, finding out all the things I did not know that I did not know.
Yes.
It's
yes.
a little overwhelming at first.
Yes, definitely. It's like a waterfall of information, and every time you get home after a conference, you're trying to implement at least one or two things before the next conference. So yeah, and so it takes the whole writing process it's a long process, but if you want to do it right, you need those lessons, and you need to be willing to learn from others who have gone before.
Exactly. It's kind of like I always think about what Edie Milton says. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yes. And writing novels is definitely about like eating an elephant for sure.
All right. Now, I'm curious. Which camp you fall in? Are you a plotter, a pantser, or are you somewhere in the middle?
I'm in the middle. I'm a plantser. Yes, I do a basic outline, and then I go from there. Although with each new novel I start, I try to do a little bit more of that. But my first novel was totally pantsing it, and it's probably why I'm been doing edits for years. So I try to do a little bit more plotting, but I still like to just see where the story's going to take me for the most part.
Yeah. Now, we're going on 14 minutes, and so I want to make sure to ask you something that I noticed in your bio that was really interesting. So,
Okay.
say that you travel a lot. So, I'm curious, like, what is the most interesting place that you've been to?
Oh boy! Wow. Okay. Well, the most recent one is we went. My husband and I went to Alaska. And up into the Yukon, and that was actually a double vacation for celebrating our 35th wedding anniversary, and for researching my second series of novels, which is set. It was like 3 days cruise, 10 days on land, and it followed almost exactly my storyline. And so I was able to hit all these places I had been researching online for my story, and just get to sit and look at these majestic places, and think about my characters there. And that, back in 1898, 1899. And so that was really exciting to do that. And then, but I have also, for my first set of books is in England, like I said, up in North Yorkshire, and there's a little bit of traveling that goes on in there. But I got to go visit some of those places too, and that was really exciting. It sort of makes the story in my head come to life even more, to be able to picture my characters in these places and see the things and smell the smells and taste some of the foods, yeah, it just totally takes it up a notch.
That is so cool. Now,
Yeah.
I am curious because you said you went to England, and I've always been curious about people who write in historical England that live in America. 'Cause at least in America, like I could
Yes.
very easily look something up or go maybe to like Philadelphia or Washington DC or
Yeah.
someplace like that. So when it comes to your historical details in England, I know you said you traveled there and you got to tour different places, but
Mm.
how do you find those facts to really set them into where your story takes place?
Well, it started with well, I knew what my storyline wanted to be. I knew that I needed the social class difference. I knew I needed the difference in like, well, I guess it's all social class, but some with money, some without money. You've got these huge differences back then. Back it was 1747, and so you have to start with, well, what is life like back then? What kind of clothes do they wear? What was the transportation? How did they cook? What did they eat on? Just all these little things. How did they keep their food cold? Just any little modern convenience that we enjoy today, they probably didn't have at that point. So just researching, um, just just everyday life is kind of where you start, and knowing that I wanted to be as true to the historical accuracy as I could be writing a fiction. I tried to be very careful about looking up the information in as many places as I could find to get the idea of just a lot of it, the daily life and how they survived during that time. And so that's kind of where it started.
Well, that's a good point about the day-to-day aspects, because really
Mhm.
you can like engross a reader in a time period just by the small little day-to-day things that we normally take for granted and how they were
Yes.
different back then. So I like that you think about that. That's
Yeah.
good. All right. Um, Before we go, where is the best place for readers to find you if they want to keep up with you and keep up with your writing so they can finally get their hands on a Sandy Kay Slawson novel one day?
Okay, well, hopefully that will be soon. But they can find me at my website, which is https. Well, I guess they can figure that part out, but it's Sandy Kay Slawson Writer.org. Sandy Kay Slawson Writer.org.
Oh, so you're fancy with the dot. I like that. That seems so official.
Oh.
I like
Well,
that.
and they can get to my blog from there too. So I try to put a blog out every month. So I try, and I do have a long before I started the book reviews and author interviews. I did a whole series on my research for my first set of novels in the 18th century. So there's a lot of stuff I learned through research that they could go back and look at if they're interested in that.
Ooh, that is so cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
They can look at some pictures and things like that of some of the clothing they wore and things like that. Yeah.
Well, that's just neat. I like that. All right. Well, thank you, Sandy, for being here with us tonight. And thank
Great.
you, everyone that's watching, whether live or on the replay. If you have not read Sandy's story yet in our Love in Disguise issue, you can go to our website now and read it for free and go check it out. And like Sandy said, you can always go to her website and read her blog and keep up with her that way. So, everyone, I hope you have a wonderful night. I hope you have way too many books to read. And I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed holiday season. Yes. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.